All right. Good evening, everyone. You want to go to the next slide for us? Welcome to Jumpstart Your Job Search. I'm Pat Fligge, Director of Temple Professional Network. Whether you're watching live or viewing the recording, I'm grateful you're here. I will introduce my co-presenter in just a moment. First, let me go over a few logistics. If you have a question during tonight's presentation, feel free to leave it in the chat. We'll either answer it live or we'll save it for the Q&A time at the end. But I do ask that unless you're asking a question, please remain on mute tonight. And like I said, we will have some Q&A time at the end of the presentation. We'll also be sending a recording of tonight's webinar along with a PDF of the slides to everyone who registers. So you don't have to jot down exactly everything that's said. That'll be sent out to you so you have notes and links in the next couple of days. And so if we want to go to that next slide, we'll talk through the agenda real briefly. Tonight is all about getting yourself ready for your job search. You'll be learning more about developing a career strategy in the current job market, preparing to pivot, taking intentional actions. And then you'll also learn about the exclusive Temple Professional Network tools that hopefully make this whole process easier for you to navigate. And now I'm pleased to introduce tonight's presenter, Temple-made Leah Murphy. Leah C. Murphy is a certified professional career coach, sought-after speaker, and best-selling author located in Philadelphia, PA. Leah is the president of Career Gems for The Journey, a boutique consultancy focused on supporting professionals to build thriving careers through strategy and calculated risk-taking. The mission for Career Gems for The Journey is to equip clients with confidence and tools to build thriving careers, empower professionals to seek fulfillment and results in their work, and endeavor to level the playing field in serving women and people of color. Take it away, Leah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pat. It's always funny to hear my own introduction. It'll never not be weird. So I'm super excited to be here tonight with all of you really amazing humans who decided to spend their time thinking about their own professional development and take advantage of the resources that Temple University, my alma mater, has to offer tonight. So looking forward to this. And I'd love to take all your questions at the end, as Pat said. We're going to jump right into the content because I know your time is valuable. And Pat mentioned in the agenda, we really wanted to prepare folks to start thinking about the job market of today. And as you're thinking about making a transition, career, professionally, whether you're really happy with what you're doing right now and you just want to look out into the future, or whether you are looking for something new that's a little bit more urgent and near in, it's really important to start off by developing a career strategy. So I know that feels like, way up in the sky, career strategy, and people kind of will pause and say, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? So I like to just try to break it down into something that feels a little bit more digestible. And that's what you guys are looking at up here on the screen. So define your short-term goals. So I like to talk about short-term goals in the way of 6 to 18 months. And 6 to 18 months allows you to think about, do I want to stay where I am in my current organization? Do I want to leave and go to another organization? Or am I looking to grow in this organization? And in order to grow, what would that mean, right? So really just start to ask yourselves, what are you looking for as you are in the present, right? In the here and now. And then your midterm goals kind of look like 19 months to 4 years out. And I tell people to focus on this window of time because it's really important to say each role that you take in your professional career can be a building block if you design it that way. So I'll give you a quick example. I spent a fair amount of time working in corporate before starting my own business. And in starting that, I realized that I wanted to be on one specific career path, and it was very technical. And that technical career path looked one way. And then I got tapped and asked to move on to a manager career path. And that manager career path looked completely different. So in order for me to choose between the technical career path and the manager career path, I had to decide what that midterm window was going to look like for me. And the important part for me there was it gave me an opportunity to evaluate my personal and professional needs. So it allowed me to bring more of my personal life into my decision-making because I believe that career is a component of your life. It's a huge component for a lot of us, but that ebbs and flows in seasons, right? For me at that stage, I was looking to buy a home. I was looking to relocate to another city. So those variables made a difference in my midterm career goals. And then long term. So your long term aspirations is what I like to call them, because it's hard to be a goal when it's so far out on the horizon. But using those aspirations as a motivator to say, how can I think about my entire career, and how can I make sure that the position that I'm in today will enable me or help me get to where I want to get to on the long term. And those are a great opportunity to have conversations with mentors, with sponsors, with peers in the organization, or even folks who are in roles that you're interested in. It gives you an opportunity to do that. So start with your short term. And this can be a little bit of a homework assignment. Start with your short-term goals so that you can really speak to that in a way that feels confident to you, that feels true. And then when you finish identifying the short-term goals for yourself, it also allows you to introduce those goals to other people. And when you introduce them to other people, now you have a coalition of people that have their ear kind of listening to the ground for an opportunity or something that might be a great fit for you. So start by defining your short-term goals. Then we like to go into the midterm, and then we like to set our long-term aspirations. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of grounded folks for a minute. This is very, very fresh, brand new data that my team, my organization has actually done some scouring, some research to learn that 70% of people have been laid off or experienced underemployment at some point in their career. And this one really blew me away. It blew me away more because I knew a lot of people in my network personally who had experienced some form of layoff. And we're just in a very layoff-centric time. It's kind of covering all of our news cycles. It's something that lots of organizations are talking about. Some organizations are doing, some organizations have already done. But what this did for me was just to remind me, a lot of times people take it personally that I was laid off, and what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my career? But when you see this data, it means that several people, right? Only 3 out of 10 people have not experienced some form of layoff or underemployment. And underemployment is defined as taking a role that is not aligned to your current experience for financial reasons or for personal reasons, right? So underemployed means you've chosen to take a role that may not be at your experience level or at the compensation that you're looking for, but it was what you needed to do at that time. So 70% of people have been laid off or experienced underemployment at some point in their career. And when we think about careers being long, 30, 25-year careers, it makes sense that this would happen, especially in the market that we're operating in, which is corporations make choices based on a quarter to quarter, very tied to stock price. So a lot of times we'll see organizations that will do layoffs temporarily and then hire back, or we'll see people who do a large hiring surge and then tend to lay off after that. So the intention here is really to destigmatize some of these choices, because careers are not linear paths. They ebb and flow. So when I talk about making a transition and thinking about what you're doing for your career and really jump-starting your job search, there's some questions that I think are important to ask. And those questions will help us understand the current market conditions. So I just mentioned that 70% of folks have experienced underemployment or layoff at some point in their career, and that's as of 2023. That may continue to change. But when you ask your questions specifically about the market that you're approaching and that you're entering into, what are the shifts that are happening in specific market sectors, right? So I know a lot of the discussion around layoff and underemployment can be sectioned off to the industry that you're interested in. So there's still industries that are growing tremendously. Healthcare is an example of an industry that's still growing tremendously. They're hiring currently, and there's a shortage, is a word that is often used in healthcare. Now, there are lots of arguments around, are those shortages organic or have they been driven by the pandemic? But healthcare is still a market that is growing. So asking your question around what are the market sectors and what are the specific market sectors for what I'm looking in? We know that the tech sector right now has been doing all kinds of crazy jumping jacks, right? When it comes down to shrinking their workforce or making significant changes. So it allows you, as you're thinking about your short-term goals, to ask questions about your specific sector, your market, and then that can help to guide your decision. Because some markets are thriving and there's an opportunity to take a short-term stint in that market and then look for transferable skills that may put you to be better positioned for another market. So lots of job flexibility comes when you're open to switching markets. So then what role does timing play in your career strategy? And I mentioned a little bit earlier that your personal life, as well as your professional life, have to be thought of in continuity, right? It's very difficult to separate the two. And even though there are arguments to, bring your full self to work or not bring your full self to work and keep a barrier in between the two, I know for a lot of folks who are working remotely or operating in a hybrid environment, it physically feels like work has kind of overlapped. But when I think about it as your strategy and what makes sense for you, those two strategies should constantly be checking in with one another. Your personal life strategy and what you have on the horizon and your career life. Really, in an ideal situation, your personal life is leading and your career is following. And then there's times where your career will be leading and your personal life will be following. So I really try to encourage folks to think about both as you're thinking about that for beyond 19 month strategy. And then how is the current market impacting your long-term and short-term goals? So when you think about what's going to happen 5 years from now, the market is very much in flux. And it's difficult to put your finger on it, right? Especially as folks who may not be following the job market as closely as someone like myself or someone like Pat. But conceptually, if you think about having a series of transferable skills that allow you to be successful in different sectors of the job market, be it tech, be it healthcare, be it in the industry, be it IT, right? If you have skill sets, project management capabilities, if you have cross-functional skills or easily transferable skills, that will kind of allow you to experience less of the ebb and flow that goes along with the job market, because you'll be able to thrive regardless. So this was another, pretty hard-hitting fact. The average tenure for Gen Z in a job is 2.8 years. And that's not necessarily with a company. So I wanted to clarify that. It's not necessarily with a company. You may be with a company for a longer period of time, or you may not, but 2.8 years in a job. So folks are looking to make changes throughout their career. So new entrants to the job market will make between 10 and 14 job transitions throughout their career. So this is really to teach us, gone are the days where we take the opportunity to take one role, we kind of put our head down and we exist in that role for 34 years, and then we're given our gold watch and we collect our pension. These transitions are going to happen. Some of them are going to be transitions that we initiate because we're looking for a new role, we're looking for growth, we're looking to get promoted, we're looking to take a cross-functional assignment, and some of them will be based on the market. Companies will shrink, companies will evolve, but 10 to 14 times are really where that transition is going to be going forward. And that still will apply, right? I know this speaks to Gen Z specifically, but this also applies to folks who are currently in career, right? Currently millennials who are in career, as well as Gen X, right? To be honest, there are folks who are going to be compelled to make these transitions. And I know that we have all of those folks represented here today. So really helps us to think about it as this is a part of the new normal. How can we adjust to thinking about making these transitions? And how can we strategize to make them beneficial to us? So this is a quote that I really, really enjoy by Kanika Tolliver, who's the author of Career Rehab. And she talks about career pivots. I think making career pivots because you're looking for a new level of career happiness or satisfaction in their career. So people make the change because they want to make a change. And then whether it's wanting to learn something new or wanting to make more money or keep up with what's going on in the industry. So it really allows people to think about career as a personal journey. And you guys know, I like the word journey, right? Career Gems for the Journey is the plug. So as a really personal journey. And as you can think about, what do you want from your career? Do you have a desire to learn something new, to take on new complex challenges? Do you have a desire to transition industries? Do you have a desire to relocate and live somewhere different, which requires you to choose a different role? I love that there is some happiness and satisfaction that can come into your career strategy, because I think that's important to keep us motivated. It has to be a little bit bigger than a tactical day-to-day. So here we are. Now we want to think about, how do we prepare to pivot, right? What is the actual work that I really encourage folks to do as they get into action and start to think about what are they looking to do in that short-term goal? So I love to talk about exercises like identify target industries and organizations aligned with your career goals. Once you've done the work, you know your short-term goals, you know your midterm goals, and you have your long-term aspirations. What are the companies that are aligned with that aspiration? What are the companies that will create what you need compensation-wise for you? What are the companies that would also align with your morals and values? What are the companies that align to the location in which you want to live? These are great questions for you to ask yourself so that then when the opportunities present themselves, it filters down your job search process. A lot of times, we feel like there's this vast ocean of job postings that we're looking through and we're filtering through. Any work you can do in advance to start to filter through some of those opportunities or organizations and decide what's not a good fit for you and what is, will help your job search be smoother, and actually will help to manage your time, and which often can manage our motivation, right? Job searching can feel like it's a job in itself. So as you filter out and identify those target industries or target organizations, you can do a lot of work to speed up the process. The other one, which is probably a big one that doesn't get talked about a lot, is really refining your personal brand. And when I think about refining your personal brand, that really looks like, how are you showing up digitally these days, right? Pat is going to talk about some of the resources that the Temple Alumni Network has provided, and the university is providing. But there's also this idea of, are you making sure you're showing up well on LinkedIn? Does your personal brand look like someone who's currently looking for a job and who's currently engaging with companies and organizations that they may be interested in working for in the future or partnering with? So think about your personal brand. Do people know where you are? Can they find you easily? And does your personal brand digitally show up as a job seeker or someone who may be a job seeker in the future, someone who organizations want to look forward to? Because let's be honest, we're all Googling everyone, right? We're all LinkedIn searching everyone. So make sure that you refine that personal brand and you make sure that that feels like it represents who you are and who you want to be in the sight of an employer. And then I mentioned this a little bit earlier, really work on amplifying your transferable skills. Transferable skills are agnostic to industry often, and they can really be a difference maker. As you think about doing excellent work in the space of academia and leading teams, there is definitely an opportunity for that work that you did in academia to translate into a research role within a corporation, right? Maybe it's an R&D role. So thinking about that idea of what are the transferable skills, where are the places where what I know can also be valuable, and how do I amplify that and speak to that as I'm having conversations, as I am at networking events? Think about how you can make those transferable skills really bright and shiny. And then this one is my favorite. Be your own best advocate. I can't say this enough. Oftentimes we think that others are going to help us to amplify. Others are going to make sure that they're saying our names in rooms that we're not in. And I love that. I want sponsorship and mentorship to be a part of every career strategy, but it really starts with you. It really starts with you being your own best advocate and you being able to speak to the value that you can bring to an organization. Now, some folks may feel like that may feel a little braggadocious, and I'm here for it. I love that for you, right? Being braggadocious, I think bragging has a negative connotation. I like to call it stating facts. I like to call it telling the truth about the work that you do and how you could be an asset to an organization. So you have to be your own best advocate first, and then other people will carry the baton with you. But oftentimes they won't carry the baton for you. So I really want to encourage folks to think about being their own best advocate and using their own voice to amplify themselves. And then the last one is our last slide here before I pass it back to Pat, is to think about taking intentional actions, really intentional actions as you're approaching your job, to jumpstart your job search, to think about using your network. There are people who would love to have talent like you in their organization, but they need to know that you're open. They need to know that you're interested. So share that with your network, share that with a trusted group of advisors. Obviously, we understand that some roles, some things need to be confidential and they need to be managed appropriately, but there are definitely folks in your network that you can inform that you're looking to make a transition, or that you want to make that transition 3, 4, 5 years in the future, and they can keep their eye out for you. The other one is leverage your resource. So Pat is going to do an excellent job talking about all the resources that the university has to offer to tap into. I will be honest, I learned from Pat directly. There were things that I wasn't fully leveraging as an alumni that are available. So I'm really excited for the folks who are here now, as well as those who are watching on the replay, because the university is doing a great job to provide additional resources for folks. And then amplify your personal brand. I like to call it telling the truth, right? And showing up with your receipts. So if you are not speaking to your value and what you can bring to the organization or any organization, it's going to be very difficult for someone else to do it for you. And one quick exercise that I like to tell folks, if you don't feel comfortable maybe talking about yourself or it feels braggadocious, I like to really encourage you to start with the exercise of amplifying someone else. So maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a peer, maybe it's a friend on LinkedIn. And if you can go in and shout out their work, acknowledge them for being amazing, it really allows you to exercise the muscle. If you exercise the muscle with them, then they reciprocate with you. Now you have this virtuous cycle of everybody just giving shout outs and doing great work. And then you'll start to feel more comfortable to eventually do it yourself. So use your network, leverage your resources, and amplify your personal brand as you jumpstart your job search. I'll pass it over to you, Pat.
Amazing. Thank you, Leah. That was fantastic. I feel like I wrote down a lot of notes as Leah was talking. And I love that where you just sort of left off about how you said, no one's going to carry your baton for you. They'll carry it with you. So you got to be the one to do that work. I think that's really important. I think it's easy to, humility is great, right? I don't think anyone's sort of saying it's not, but there's also time to argue for yourself the same.
100%. I like to say that humility is for church and for your elders. It's not for a job search. It's not for corporate America. It's not for academia. So I think humility has a place. I think it's super important as a characteristic as a human. But when you're looking to take on a new opportunity, being humble, it just won't serve you at that point in time. So I love that you caught on to that one, Pat.
Thank you, Leah. No, absolutely. All right. So Leah and I love this topic, as is clear. It's going to go a little bit longer than 30 minutes. If people had that time budgeted and need to fall off, that's okay. You'll get the full recording of everything that we keep talking about for another few minutes. I do want to shout out Suzanne in the chat, put a little bit about her own career situation. If anyone else is feeling brave enough to share in the chat where you're at in your job search, what your goals are, go ahead and toss it in there. And that way, if you see someone else's journey that you can help with in some way, maybe you can exchange contact information. So not required by any means, but I just wanted to applaud Suzanne for putting herself out there and encourage others, if you want to do the same, to put it in there as well. I want to also give a quick response to Christina's question about, is it a red flag not to have a LinkedIn account? I don't think that's necessarily true, right? Like, I think it depends. If the job you're applying for is digital marketing, sure, that is probably a red flag in that arena. I do think people are going to look for you there. They might have questions of why you're not. I'd say that a bad LinkedIn is more of a red flag than no LinkedIn. But I certainly think that by not being on LinkedIn, you're missing out on a ton of opportunities. Leah, I'm curious for your take on that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it allows us to kind of understand what we're doing in the digital world, right? How are we showing up in that space? I do believe that having a LinkedIn profile will serve you if it's done well. So I agree with you, Pat, 100%. Having a LinkedIn that is feels very unintentional or maybe even inconsistent with where you are professionally, or maybe even inconsistent with what your resume says, will do more to harm you than good. But I do think most employers right now are going to go to LinkedIn at some point during a hiring process. Oftentimes, I don't have any stats on that. That's just an impression. So I do think that it helps you to have a LinkedIn profile. And it also certainly helps you because most of the digitization that folks are doing, whether it's LinkedIn or whether it's one of the other platforms, because I've seen Indeed do a lot. I've seen a lot of other platforms kind of come up as search engines, but LinkedIn does have a certain amount of credibility in the space. So short answer is, don't have one if it's not good, if it doesn't align with where you are and it doesn't align with your resume. Long answer is maybe take an opportunity to peruse and see if it's something that you can make time for. I wouldn't say it's your first priority.
100%. All right. Thanks, Leah. So let's keep talking about some of those tools that Leah mentioned. That Temple's got have a great suite of resources that you can access through the Temple Professional Network. They're up on this slide right here. I'm going to walk through and demo each of these systems. Again, you're going to get these slides, so you'll have the direct links and the description. My hope tonight through this demonstration is to sort of show you enough to validate why it's worth the energy of logging into these things. I will say that because these are exclusive for Temple alums, you do need to access them using your Temple email address. If that's no longer active, there's a link on our next slide where you can reactivate those credentials so they can send it to you if you do not any longer have that access net and Temple email. So no problem at all. All right, so Leah, if you want to stop your share, and then I will start mine in just a moment. All right, can I get a thumbs up from you, Leah? Can you see my screen? Perfect, great. All right, let me move you guys over here. Okay, so this is the TPN homepage, and we'll get you this link afterwards, but this is where you can find all of your Temple Professional Network resources. What I'm going to show right here is the Explore box on the right-hand side. We click Learn More on that guy. It's going to break out into a few different resources, but I'm going to focus here on our online career resources. So this is where we house those 4 tools that were linked on that slide, and you can find these right here. So I'm going to start with OWL Network. OWL Network is kind of like a LinkedIn just for Temple, all right? So when you join this, we sort of validate that everyone on this platform is a Temple OWL, so you know that's who you're talking to here. What I recommend when you join, after you join using that Temple email, that's the easiest way. If you go into My Profile and scroll down on the right-hand side, you can import your LinkedIn. So if you already have a LinkedIn, it can bring in all of that information. That way you don't have to keep fully filling out this profile as well. We go back to its homepage. The real value here in OWL Network is on the networking tab. What I suggest is as you're networking, as you're looking to connect with people, if you're finding them on LinkedIn, make sure you come over here to OWL Network, because what you can do is search for someone on this platform. And because we've already sort of vetted everyone here, you can just directly send them a message. Now, of course, it's going slow tonight when I'm trying to demonstrate it for everyone, but there, I say that and now it loads, right? So let's say that you found Madison somewhere else, maybe on LinkedIn. You really want to talk with her. By going to their profile here, it'll load a way that you can directly send them a message, putting it right in their inbox. So it could just be another more direct way to get in touch with someone. But I always encourage everyone, networking is a numbers game. You kind of have to use an all of the above approach. So this is one other tool to get in touch with people. The other unique value about OWL Network is this More Filters button. So again, we're still here on the networking tab, More Filters at the top. If you go into Help Topic, this is basically showing you exactly how someone is willing to help. I know sometimes it can feel awkward to reach out to someone that you don't know, but you got 2 things going for you here. Everyone on this platform is an OWL, and they're telling you exactly the kinds of questions that they're willing to answer. So that may make it feel a little bit easier to take that big step of reaching out to a stranger and asking for some advice. But I always assume that if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on OWL Network, you want to be found. You want to talk with people. You wouldn't be there if that wasn't the case. So I know it can feel scary to send that intro message, but I think the people here are looking out for it. So that is OWL Network. Again, it was found here in the top of our list on our online career resources. The next one I want to go to is CareerShift. So again, we'll have to log into it using a Temple email address. CareerShift is a really powerful job organization tool. If you're sort of struggling to keep everything in one place, be organized in this very complicated process, don't want to say that it's not complicated. It certainly is. If you use CareerShift, you sort of can't help but be organized about your approach. It allows you to save jobs, contacts, companies, your own documents right here in one place. That way they're not scattered across your desktop. And it has some really powerful search tools. So here in this dashboard column, I'm going to start on the jobs tab. If I go into jobs and I click search, this is a really detailed and powerful job search aggregator. So you can come in here, you can do just a keyword search, but you can also narrow it down by geography, job type, experience level, how quickly it was published. So I'm sure you're familiar with lots of these categories. It also lets you check to filter for H-1B visa sponsorships, if that's a need in your job search. And the nice thing is it's aggregating together results from around the internet. So if I just do a keyword search on digital marketing jobs and click the search button, it's giving me almost 10,000 results. So again, it's probably not every digital marketing job out there, but you can certainly start here and find a lot in one place. The other thing I like about this search tool is that it lets you instantly find contacts. Leah mentioned a couple of times the importance of networking. I think everyone here knows that networking is super critical. But let's say you're interested in this digital marketing position with Hope Towing Company, right? We go to find contacts, it's going to figure out, all right, well, who works there? Small business. Looks like there's just one person there, right? Let's see if I can get a bigger one just to demonstrate a little bit more results. Social media marketing entrepreneur. So I click the job, it's taking me right to where it's posted. But if I come back here and hit find contacts, oh, no one there. All right, let me find a better one. Newmark Tower. I'm seeing if I recognize any of these companies. Well, we'll come back to the contact search in a second. But what this does demonstrate for you is that it's stitching together jobs from across the internet and easily allowing you to sort of tumble down the networking rabbit hole. You can also start there, right? So if we're back here in this dashboard column, click on contacts, click on search. This lets you, again, search for people, not jobs this time. We're going to search for people. So you do have some advanced filters that you can look for if you're looking for people, executive, mid-management, non-management level. What you can do is start with an industry, right? So we can come in here. Let's see, I'm going to select accounting and accounting services. And then in school attended is how you can narrow down for Temple University. So you could try the big T Temple. I suggest putting it in quotes. You could also try your specific school or college from Temple. Then when we hit search here, all right, it's finding 728 people that it's categorized in that industry field. And it's pulling together email address, LinkedIn, and phone number. Now, this is all publicly available data. You could have sort of hunted through these company websites to find this information. What CareerShift is doing is putting it in one place for you. One other filter that I want to highlight in this dashboard column on the left-hand side is companies. So when Leah was talking about finding your target companies, you can come in here and do a search there, right? So let's say you were interested in Comcast. So I'm going to put Comcast in the company name box, hit search. It's going to show me all of the companies that are close to that name. We want Comcast Corporation. So you're getting some quick company information right here, but it also is building links out to the company jobs that are posted and the company contacts. So if you think you're interested in working for Comcast, I know we have a lot of Temple Owls there. We go into company search, it's automatically pre-populating that. We add in Temple University here, hit search, and now it's showing me 320 owls that it has identified as working at Temple. I know I'm going quickly through these. You can revisit this part of the recording so you can sort of demonstrate where to find this information. But really, you can just live here in the dashboard and start by either looking for jobs, looking for contacts, or looking for companies. I know the job search can be a grind, and how do you prioritize your time? I always like to think of these as starting places, right? Do I spend enough time focused on what's posted today? Have I spent time this week on, have I reached out to contacts for informational interviews, or have I done research on my target companies? Are they hiring? So think of these as 3 different domains of time that you can sort of prioritize in your own job search. I'm going to go back to the TPN online career resources. Well, as you start to get closer to that application, the next tool you want to check out is JobScan. This is a pretty popular one. There's a sort of a free version that's out there that maybe some folks have already used. But if you come back to JobScan and log in using your Temple email address, it'll give you access to all the premium features. So I'm going to go here into the dashboard. JobScan lets you scan a number of different things. You can scan your LinkedIn profile. You can scan your cover letter. It is advertising a cover letter writing tool right now, powered by some of the AI tools that are out there. I don't know if it's quite up to the level that I would want it to be, so I wouldn't necessarily rely on that feature yet. We're still seeing how those tools are going to evolve. But what JobScan lets you do is copy and paste in your resume and cover letter and a job description that you're applying for. I know everyone's heard that you have to tailor your approach to specific positions, but that can be really hard. That can be really, really difficult to figure out, well, what are the right adjustments to make for each job application that I'm going to process? So if I hit view sample scan here, it's just going to build a sample for me. So it already pasted in a job description and a resume. And this is giving you a sample output of targeted feedback on your resume document by different category, right? So this one's telling you, here's how searchable it is by the automated tracking systems. And it's giving you either a green check mark that you've got the right information or not. A red X means this section needs work. If we keep scrolling down, it's going to give you an inventory of hard skills. It's going to give you inventory of soft skills. You can take this with a grain of salt, right? I think if we zoom out, they're keywords, right? Do you have the right keywords on your resume? And sometimes it's just a simple switch of the vocab terms that you're using, right? Maybe you are doing some strategic thinking. You're just not talking about it in that way. So you can get it into your resume knowing that it is on the job description. Now, something I want to highlight for the recovering straight A students that are on the call tonight is that you do not need to get 100% in this system, all right? JobScan is showing green at 76. Anything in these 70s is a strong response. This is an imperfect system, right? It's a computer that's sort of interpreting your results. Humans are still going to look at your resume, even though it's going to go through some sort of automated system. So anything in the 70s, consider that really strong. Don't hurt yourself trying to get to 100%. Sometimes that's just impossible. On the flip side, I also do not recommend doing things like putting keywords in white font in the margins. Again, a human is going to look at this document. They're going to see that you're trying to game the system. So you want to be intellectually honest about this approach. But JobScan is going to give you some very targeted feedback of what are the word choices that you need to make sure that your application stands out in the process. Now, one last tool. This one's really helpful. Big Interview. I mean, they're all really helpful, but this one's just super useful. Big Interview, last one on the list here. This is a practice interview software system. So if you land an interview at the last second, right, it could be 11 p.m. at night, you find that interview invitation in your inbox, you can come in here to Big Interview and practice real interview questions. There's a ton of just good career resources in here overall, including a salary negotiation section here too. Leah and I didn't really talk specifically about that tonight. That could be a whole 45 minutes unto itself, but there's a great resource in here in Big Interview that you can use. But once you're into Big Interview, click on this practice button. We're going to go to practice interviews. And this gives you different categories, right? So you can start with just general common questions that almost everybody gets asked in an interview. You can look at industry specific questions, questions by competency or skill set, and these other categories as well. So just to get a little bit more granular here, if I go into the general question set, you can look at either standard, challenging, or tough questions. It's organized by entry level, mid-level, senior level, managerial role, right? Like it's really breaking it down. Now I can't really demo further. The camera gets a little wonky when we're sharing screens, but basically if I clicked on one of these boxes, it's going to give me a list of questions. They're recorded. So it's actors that have sort of recorded themselves asking you the question, and then you answer it. And your computer can actually make a recording of you answering that question that you can then download and send to a career advisor or a mentor of yours to work on. Big Interview also has an AI-powered scanner that can scan these questions, the answers that you give to these questions to see how clear of a response are you giving. Does it sort of make sense based on what the answer is? So you can get some instant feedback whenever you need it. So again, if you land that interview at the very last second, it's all there for you. I know that was a lot of content and I went quickly. What I hope is that you remember these are really powerful tools that Temple has made available to you that I promise will make this job search easier. These are complicated processes. I wish that there was a better, easy button than persistence, but that's sort of the only magic button I know of. But if you use these tools right here, it will help you with that process. And again, to summarize those, OWL Network is your networking tool. CareerShift is your job search organization tool. JobScan can help make sure that resume is in top shape. And then Big Interview is when you're ready to prep for all those interviews that you're going to land. So I'm going to stop my share right there. That concludes the formal agendas for tonight. I'm going to stop our recording in just a second. And then Leah and I are happy to stick around and answer any questions or take any feedback that anyone has. So I'll stop the recording right now. And if anyone is watching the recording, please feel free to email or reach out.